morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Friday, March 16th, 2018. I am Dave Biddle, very happy to be joined by Jonah Booker, as usual, each Friday morning. Good night for the Buckeyes last night. I guess good late afternoon, early evening, but the Buckeyes survived the first round JBook. They beat South Dakota State 81-73. Just your main takeaway from the win yesterday.
I'm just happy to get a win. At one point, it looked like Ohio State was going to blow that lead that they had, but they found a way to dig deep and get the win. It's a typical Ohio State win. This team has done it all season long. Whenever they found them backs against the wall, they always fought, and they were able to overcome. I just have to say, Dave, I was totally impressed the way Cam Williams played in that second half. He was lights out, career high for him. And the other thing, takeaway that I have from that is the three-pointers. I mean, my goodness, 12 three-pointers, that's definitely not in this team's DNA, shooting 40-plus three-pointers. But, hey, it worked. They got the win. It was a hard-fought battle. And I tell you what, Gonzaga didn't look that good to me yesterday. So I think Ohio State definitely has an opportunity to win that game, especially if they can stay in foul trouble and continue to hit the offensive boards like they did against South Dakota. I tell you, the other guy who I really loved the way he played was Dackage. The guy was feisty. He made some critical defensive stops there, and he was able to help guide this team. So I'm very bullish about that win. I think they have a great opportunity against Gonzaga coming up.
Yeah, Gonzaga almost got upset. I mean, that really came down to the wire. It looked like UNC-Greensboro had them, and Gonzaga ended up winning that game by 4 points. But, man, it looked like Greensboro had them. But so that would have been nice. Even though Greensboro is a good team, it would have been nice facing 13th-seeded UNC-Greensboro instead of Gonzaga. But I'm with you. I think the Buckeyes have a decent chance. Gonzaga is going to be favored, and rightfully so, but I think the Buckeyes have a decent chance tomorrow of winning that game. A couple more things about last night's game, yesterday's game. You mentioned it. I mean, Cam Williams was just awesome. What a time for him to have his career-high points with 22, 5 rebounds. He was taking the ball to the hoop, showing that athletic ability that, frankly, he probably doesn't show enough. And then he, of course, had the play of the game. It looked like the Buckeyes were starting to pull away late, getting that 10-point lead, 11-point lead, and then South Dakota comes all the way back. South Dakota State comes all the way back and ties it at 70, and then boom, Cam Williams with the 4-point play to put the Buckeyes up, then comes down, gets fouled on another 3-pointer. So 7 quick points from Cam Williams. But it's that 4-point play we're really going to remember when the game was tied, JBook.
Absolutely, that was the turning point of the game right there, because if you were watching that game, South Dakota definitely had the momentum, because Ohio State was up 8 or 9, and South Dakota hit back-to-back threes to cut it to within one possession, and then they went to the free throw line and tied the game up, and all of a sudden you're like, uh-oh, what are we going to do here? And then boom, like you said, Cam Williams hit that 4-point play, and it kind of just let the air out of South Dakota, and then coming back, and that freshman, and the thing I said about Dackage is he, on that other 3-pointer where he got fouled, Dackage, he fought and kept that ball loose and got the tip out, and so those type of efforts that you see from a veteran is critical in these moments. But Cam Williams, my goodness, let's see if he can keep it rolling against Gonzaga.
C.J. Jackson also a huge game, 20 points, 9 rebounds for C.J. Jackson, 5 assists, so kudos to him. Wasn't perfect, had some moments where you're like, what are you doing? But overall, I mean, what a game for C.J. Jackson. Bates-Diop, 24 points, 12 rebounds, the Big Ten Player of the Year, played like it. And then you got to give credit to Mike Daum over there. What a player. We're looking at a couple of future NBA players with Daum for South Dakota State, and then Bates-Diop for the Buckeyes. Daum finished with 27 points, 6 boards. Looked like the Buckeyes were able to wear him out a little bit, though. As great as he is, they were able to at least wear him down a little bit. But just your thoughts on that, kind of that future, they're not going to be lottery picks, but probably late first-round picks with Bates-Diop and Daum going at it.
Yeah, definitely. It was tremendous basketball playing at the highest level. Guys are going to be playing at the NBA coming next year. But the one thing that I noticed about Ohio State is I think that layoff really benefit them. It looks like they got their legs back. Down the stretch of the Big Ten regular season in the tournament, I think this team was absolutely gassed. And with those 12 to 13 days off, it looks like those guys were able to get their legs back and was able to finish the game. And that's the main thing with Chris Holtman's team is he teaches that team to finish. They don't always win pretty, but they typically finish, and that's what we saw yesterday, similar to what we saw in the regular season. But the basketball play, it was the big guns stepped up when you needed them, and let's see if they can do it against Gonzaga, and I think they can. I don't think Gonzaga is as good as everybody was making them out to be. I know a lot of bracketologists and the talk shows had Gonzaga going to the Final Four, Elite Eight, and they very well may go, but I just didn't think they looked as good as what everyone was hyping them up to be.
They sure didn't yesterday. They're flat out lucky to get through to the second round. So we'll see about that matchup tomorrow. Before we move on to football, I do want to ask you a football question before we close the show. But one more thing on basketball. What did you think about Chris Holtman's strategy? And it worked in the end because they won. That's what it's all about, man. Survive and advance. Just win, baby. Whatever cliche you want to use. But I feel like, look, when you're the favorite, I would like for the other team to adjust to you. Like the Buckeyes are the 5 seed. It felt like they adjusted to South Dakota State. Like the Buckeyes went small. Caleb Wesson, the second best freshman in the Big Ten, played 7 minutes, didn't even score, had 2 rebounds. What did you make of that? Was that a smart move by Chris Holtman, or do you think maybe he overreacted there going with small ball?
I think he had a tad overreaction there. Ohio State was towering over those guys whenever their bigs were in there. And I think when you're dealing with a mid-major like that, if you can get those guys to play your style of game that you want and you set the tempo, set the pace, I think he would eventually wore those guys out. But he played to their strengths. He wanted to match up. I think he probably had a little bit more respect for them than what a lot of people anticipated by going small ball and matching up with them instead of having his big guys out there and forcing them to adjust to what he was doing. But I think it was a situation where he probably overvalued what they were actually able to do.
All right, spring ball will resume for the Buckeyes on Tuesday. They were off this week. They had a couple practices last week, off this week, of course, for spring break. Tell me maybe a football storyline or 2 storylines that surprise you so far or intrigue you, just maybe a storyline or 2 that's piqued your interest, JBook.
Yeah, I'm interested in what's going to happen at the cornerback position. I know Damon Arnett, he's a guy that a lot of people penciled in to be competing for that starting corner position. A lot of people think it's going to be Okudah and Sheffield, but Arnett is a guy that they were anticipating to at least be the starting nickel. And there's a lot of reports that's coming out that Shaun Wade is looking darn good. The former 5-star, he's healthy. The guy has tremendous length, wingspan, and he's getting a lot of reps with Damon Arnett in the supposedly doghouse, and Okudah being injured and not participating in spring ball. So this is a valuable time for Shaun Wade. And I think if he can emerge, even if you get Arnett squared away and you get Okudah back healthy, that's just going to provide tremendous depth at that position. So that's something that I'm definitely keeping an eye on and monitoring. And just the quarterback, I think that the quarterback storyline is obviously one that everyone in the country is monitoring. And I find it fascinating that Dwayne Haskins, and I have no idea how he got plugged into this, but is on South Beach throwing to Antonio Brown and Mohamed Sanu. I mean, I know he's going to go back to spring practice, and it's going to be a totally different ball game when it comes to the wide receivers he's going to be throwing to after throwing to those guys. But I thought that was fascinating that he's training with them and showing the NFL guys what type of arm talent he actually has. Can he parlay what he's learning with those guys to his spring competition? So the quarterback position is definitely one to watch.
Excellent wisdom, as always, from Jonah Booker. Thank you very much, JBook. You can catch his column every week on Bucknuts. It is outside Columbus. You can catch him on Twitter. He is at JBook37. So thank you very much, Jonah Booker, and thank you to all the listeners out there for tuning into the show. I appreciate it. I hope you have a great day and a great weekend. Go Buck tomorrow. Let's hear that Buckeye swag, best in band in the land.